Welcome back to Stark Radio. I'm producer Liz on TikTok. You know me for my series where we venture into the world of a Marvel radio station. Today we're talking to another creator who's done some world building of his own. It's Blazers On for our conversation with the stylish, the hilarious, and the iconic Nikhil Clayton. What would happen if some iconic characters were taxed by the IRS? Take a peek.
Hey Clyde, remember when we tried to tax the Hulk? Are you referring to the time you had me break into Banner's house to steal his financial information despite the fact we already had it? Oh, get over it, okay? Hazing's illegal in Greek life. You can do it if you're in the government. What about the Hulk? I found a way to tax him. A way that doesn't involve Harlem getting leveled again? I mean, possibly. I don't know. I don't really care. We're gonna go through Fix-It. Joe Fix-It? Yeah, the gray one. He's reasonable. I mean, I wouldn't call Joe Fix-It reasonable, but you're right, he is coherent. Good, so go start the audit and good luck. Are you trying to fuck with me again? We already have his information. Okay, first of all, having his information doesn't mean anything if he goes smash every time we try to actually get the money. Fair. 2, do you have any idea how many multiple personalities Banner has? Okay, Banner, Hulk, Joe Fix-It, and Super Hulk? I think he wants to be called Devil Hulk, and it doesn't matter because the man is a living mood rings of personalities and I want to know how many there are. And if Banner drags me to the below place, well, we've already taxed the one above all.
It is the absolutely brilliant Nikhil Clayton on TikTok, and Nikhil, you're on the podcast. Hey!
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming on. You are like one of the most hilarious people on TikTok, just like hands down across all of the fandoms and all the people that create these crazy ideas and series. I think you are particularly brilliant. So I am in the presence of greatness today on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be.
When did you start? Well, okay, before we even talk about when you started making this content, how did you even come up with the idea of what would happen if all of these iconic characters were forced to be taxed by the IRS? Like, where did that come from?
Well, there's an old joke that's canon in comics and animation that the Joker is afraid of the IRS and he will send in his forms because he doesn't want to get audited. And so I made one sketch about the people in the IRS actually receiving Joker's forms, and that would be funny. And then people really liked it and they kept suggesting other characters, and so I just kept doing other characters until it became bigger.
It is canon now, in my opinion. Like, all of what you've built, I think, is officially a part of the universes. Because you've not only done the Joker, you've done Marvel and tons of characters in DC. I think you've branched into Doctor Who and some other fandoms as well. You dabbled around. So just how many characters have you taxed? If you had to make a guess, how many branches of this have you explored?
Probably maybe around 100 at this point. I make a lot of these videos.
And where do the ideas keep coming from? Because it feels like there's this endless bucket of ideas for you to draw from in such a specific niche of tax humor. So where does it keep coming from?
Well, basically, I just read through the comments and then people keep recommending characters, and then I find one that I know a bit about, and then I don't know, I just kind of think of there's a lot of gray area in how superheroes use money, so I can kind of make up whatever I want and be like, yeah, we can tax blank person. And then as I kept going, my character got eviler and eviler, so I got to tax things that aren't taxable, which is very helpful.
Yeah, let's talk about the characters, because you have Baker, I believe, is one, right? And then there's a couple guys here that work in the IRS, so why don't you take us through who your characters are, their levels of tolerance for the evilness in the office, and there's the ongoing joke of hey, now you have to go do the audit, you go do the work, I'm just going to tell you what to figure out for me. So walk us through who these characters are, the color of blazer that they wear, and kind of how you've developed them over time.
So I have Baker's my main guy, and he runs the IRS, and I usually have a very big black trench coat that I wear when I'm playing him. And then he's got one guy who works for him named Clyde, and Clyde is just a nicer version that doesn't want to go audit these people that can't be audited, or is fed up with the fact that he's going to face superheroes, and they just argue for most of the skits. And that's my only original characters, but I also use Nick Fury a lot if I have something I don't want to do in Marvel. And Wally West, canonically, which someone pointed out to me in my comments I didn't know about before, has worked for the IRS, so I use him sometimes as well for DC characters.
Amazing. And I feel like I'm not sure how you feel about this, but for me, watching your content, it makes it so that all of these universes are existing simultaneously. So I don't know if eventually, you know, like Nick Fury is going to come in and get mad about some DC shit, or like if it's all going to end up crossing over. But I love that there's this one department looking at all of these universes and it's like, all right, if they step foot in America, they're our problem now. Like, I don't care what dimension they're from or what universe they claim to be from. Like, they are our problem as long as they're here. Do you have any plans for any kind of crossover situations coming up or anything like that?
Really, I kind of just was making videos for fun on the different characters, and I didn't think about building a world at first. And then everyone kept like questioning how I was in different universes, and so I made one skit that had Nick Fury and Bruce Wayne show up to yell at Baker, and then he was just confused how they were both in his office at the same time. And then I adopted there's a Darkseid's catchphrase is Darkseid is, because he exists in all the universes. So I just said that too. I said Baker is too. And then people kind of just rolled with it. So I just exist in all the universes. And one of the most requested things is that Baker attacks himself from a different universe. And I've not figured out how to pull that off yet. But if I ever do, I'll do that.
Amazing. You know, it's so funny how seriously people take these series on TikToks. Like, you know, I'm very early in building the Stark Radio series, but people are so serious about the plots and pay such attention to the detail that you bring into it. And where tax humor is so specific and so niche. And for people that, I mean, I would never claim to be a tax expert. I'm also Canadian, so the American tax system is very different. But when people know so much about what you're making jokes about, how do you walk that line of creating your content and finding the humor in it, and then, you know, getting not called out in the comments, but people that are so serious about taking the details serious, and how you're building on your content?
Yeah, well, there's definitely two levels of comments like that. Because on the one hand, I get people sometimes who are mad at me about tax law, because I also don't know a lot of tax law. I know basic amounts, and I'll Google things sometimes to be like, is this a thing you can get taxed for? Is this a deduction? But I get things wrong sometimes. I do get comments that are like, no, in taxes, blah, blah, blah. One of the ones I got the most at the beginning of the series was that apparently the IRS has all your information beforehand and knows how much you have to pay. Didn't know that. I figured that's why we filled out forms. But yeah, a lot of people used to get mad at me for that. And then the second thing, which I find much stranger, is I get called out for continuity sometimes in my own series. And I was like, I didn't know any of y'all were paying that much attention to what I was doing.
Yeah, who's at home like taking detailed notes about this? Like, is there somebody that's writing recaps for themselves? Like, how do people remember so specifically what you've said and not said?
I have no idea. I don't even know how they've seen all of them, because I feel like they'd come up randomly on the For You page. But like, I would do something like send someone away on a mission, and then like 5 things later, they're like, hey, is that person still doing X? And I was like, I forgot about that.
It's like, I forgot I built that plot line. Now I have to close it. So I think that you can definitely call yourself not just a content creator, but you are like writing the new canon for these characters and series. Like, I'm waiting for you to get your call from Marvel and DC. Like, all right, we got to build this into the story next. People are taking it so serious. And it also raises some questions that, for me, like, you know, why didn't we ever see like Tony Stark getting into trouble with the IRS, like in Iron Man, other than the fact that, you know, they have to only fit so much plot into the movies. But like, there are some characters in these universes that these are really substantial questions for. And I feel like we're kind of getting that satisfaction from your content of, oh, okay, well, this could be the way it could go, or this could be a solution to this problem. And one of my favorite problems that you've ever tackled was in your video about Venom. And like, okay, how do we tax Venom versus Eddie? And like, he's walking down the street, but like, is that him? And like, you know, these idea, and same with the Hulk video that we just watched, these multiple personalities, and like, do you consider them one person or multiple people because of their different actions and all of this? So how do you kind of consider that split when you're thinking about characters and thinking about plots, and also thinking about the humor that can be found in that?
Well, I started trying to take it from the approach of someone who actually lived in the world, and like not give him extra knowledge that people wouldn't have. So like, I was taxing the normal people and the secret identities, because you would assume they're 2 different people. But I kind of leaned away from that when I got a lot of comments that were like notifying me that they were the same person. Like, I made a joke about Spider-Man and Peter Parker, and everyone was like, Peter Parker is Spider-Man. I was like, you really think that's the piece of comic information I don't know?
It's like, it's on the wall behind you. Like, you have a Spider-Man poster behind you, don't you? Like, and you can see that in most of the videos. This is not your first time at the rodeo. You know this stuff.
Yeah, so I've had to lean more to just being omnipotent, and then making it more malicious, like evil intent, that I'm purposely taxing these people separately. Like I had Daredevil come in on one, and Matt Murdock argue as a lawyer that Daredevil shouldn't be taxed, and me just be like, no, he's going to be separately.
It's law. You've decided. I want to ask about like when you get these comments of people that have their own interpretation of how this should go down, right? Like on one level, it's like you want your content to hit the widest amount of people, right, and do really well. But then on the other hand, like you want to niche down into these characters and these really minute details and really play into what you've already built and develop your plot lines. I think every creator struggles with going viral and hitting the For You page and then building the content that they want to build and that they think is funny. What's that middle ground for you? Or do you tend to lean one way over the other?
Well, I guess I don't know. All of my stuff is user driven. Like I just reply to comments and do things that are requested. Like I had an idea for a Wolverine one like a month before I actually made it because for some reason no one recommended him. But so I'm very reliant on people, and I'm not like super popular. Like I only have 50,000 followers, which is like a lot, but like not compared to some of the more famous comic like skit people. And
Right.
so I have a nice little community. They all show out and they come and they talk to me about the videos and stuff, and it's a nice little collaborative thing. Sometimes I get down arcs that I never meant to go down because people get really into it. Like I made one video at the very beginning about like Storm, taxing Storm, and then someone was like, you can't tax Storm because she's a god. And I was like, that's a funny idea. So I made another video about how we can't actually tax Storm because you can't tax gods. And it was the one rule I set in place for the tax thing. And then from that point on, all people recommended were gods. So I've done both gods now. I've done gods from every universe, including ours. I did Jesus once.
Yes, that's one of my favorite videos that you've made. That was, and it, you know, when you're scrolling through your page, all of your cover photos say "Meanwhile at the IRS." So sometimes you click on them and you don't really know what angle you're about to watch. And when I clicked on that video and then realized what was happening, the tears streaming down my face, I thought that was A+, like genius level stuff. You really have quite a talent for tying it all together. And I think that with a topic as niche as IRS and taxing, 50,000 followers is substantial.
Oh yeah,
you have 50,000 people that are in deep with you about taxing gods.
I never would have thought the IRS thing would go as far as it did. And I have like merch now, and people have actually bought it. They've bought IRS merch, which is, I feel like someone should tell the actual IRS because I feel like they'd be very surprised to hear people.
You're going to have to claim on your taxes the money that you make about skits about the IRS. I want to see a video of someone reacting to all of that.
Yeah, no, that was really weird. I logged in. I tried to get my money out of the TikTok Creator Fund, and it was like, you have to fill out all these tax forms. And I was like, that's really ironic. All right.
I love it. That's so good. Well, I'm glad that you've had as much success. Let's take a minute and plug the merch. You're on Redbubble, and people can find you at Nikhil Clayton. Is that?
Yes.
Yes, amazing. And I took a look at your merch last night, and it's quite well done. You know, sometimes people make, like, content creators make merch, and it's just like their TikTok name and like something very basic. No. You've gone the extra mile into being like, what's the one you have that's like, I filled up my taxes and all I got was this T-shirt?
Yeah, audited by Baker, and all he left me was this T-shirt.
Brilliant.
I went through the comment. I made a video. It was like, do people want merch? And people left a lot of things they wanted to see, and so I made a lot of. Amazing. Well, I love that your community is as dedicated, and I consider myself part of this community, is as dedicated to this plot that you've built. How did you even get on TikTok? Like, where were you like a long time lurker before a creator, or did you come on and say like, oh no, I can add to this and I have ideas to pump into the TikTok For You page? How did the ball start rolling? I was a lurker for sure. I got on in like not last Christmas, but the Christmas before, because my girlfriend really liked it, and then I was like, TikTok seems silly, and then I downloaded it and I immediately got really into it, and then I started making TikToks way back in like last November, but no one was really watching them until the IRS one happened.
Right.
I'm from like 700 followers to 2,000 after the first IRS video.
Wow, that's substantial. And there's no better feeling than when you find that video or you find that niche that people seem to love, and then you realize you can actually scale and build and keep the ball rolling. have you ever taken a moment to stop and look back and be like, how did I get from that point to this point? Like, this is all kind of scaled very quickly. What are your thoughts on how far it's come, and then maybe how you project it's going to go from here? Like, is there a future for the series? Are there other ideas you have that you're getting ready to try out and build?
I'm incredibly impressed with how far it's gone, especially like in time wise, because I feel like trends and stuff go really quick, especially on TikTok. So I'm very impressed that like a month or two in, people are still watching new videos of the IRS, and they're still always my best performing videos. And I don't know where I'm gonna go. I'm gonna just keep doing it as long as people keep recommending them, and I'll keep making them until people stop watching them. But I also make other random skits, and if another one takes off, I'll start doing that one more as well. I made one with like an alien face that like people really liked, but then that trailed off after like 4. So
right.
I just ride the market until it goes away.
It's smart. It's smart. And what do you do outside of TikTok? Like, what is your life outside of this IRS persona, or is the IRS persona perhaps close to who you are and what you want to be doing outside of all of this?
No. I'm a film major right now. I go to school in Washington, D.C., and I'm a business and film major as well as a film major. So I go to class all the time. I actually used to just make TikToks while working on my assignments as a way of procrastination. And yeah, no, I work. I want to go into movies. I want to make movies, and hopefully this helps. I made a video applying for a job at Disney, which I did not get, which was sad. But I got the attention of one of the creators of Phineas and Ferb, and now
that's cool.
Yeah, now I'm going to be collabing with him and taxing Alka soon, which is going to be interesting.
Oh, that's amazing! I am so excited. I mean, yeah, it's brilliant. So now we're also going to get the Phineas and Ferb universe and creators maybe kind of in the IRS radar. It's brilliant. So what kind of films do you want to build? Like, are you kind of leaning towards the superhero Marvel DC kind of realm, or is there a particular direction that you want to go in?
I mean, I would love to work in Marvel or DC for real on any position on any film, but more realistically, I'm hoping to go into independent producing and help people make their own like artistic features and stuff like that. And I've written I have one feature script that I've written and sent to a few contests and stuff that I would happily also make into a film as soon as I get out of college, but we'll see.
Very cool. I love it. Well, this is only the beginning of this very long career of creating content that people love. You know, one day you'll be able to look back and say, like, we started with 60-second IRS skits on TikTok, and now we're like at Sundance. So I hope that when you get there, you remember the podcast and people like me, and you come back for follow-up interviews, because I'm sure you're going to get there. Amazing. Hopefully by then you're able to actually make TikToks and your content with real like equipment, and not just like you and I with like our phones doing this for different characters. Let's take a step back and talk about one of the most iconic pieces of your TikToks, which is the outfits. We talked a little bit about the trench coat already, but I need to know, what is your closet looking like? Because I know for me during the pandemic, I'm like sweatpants and fan merchandise all day, every day. But you show up to TikTok in the blazer you're wearing today and the trench coat. So are you a fashionable guy? Like, how does all of this come about? Is it, you use TikTok as an opportunity to dress up, or?
I don't think anyone would call me fashionable, but I do wear blazers often because I just like blazers. So I have like 5 blazers in my closet and the trench coat that goes over the blazers. And then I wear them basically with like tees like I'm wearing right now, and then ill-fitting jeans. And that's my basic look. But I don't call me stylish. I just like blazers.
I think you need a blazer sponsorship. I think we need to take this and like go pitch some companies to be like, listen, this guy has made a name for himself in the blazer community. Let's get him outfitted fast. I think it's impressive when anyone shows up on TikTok in something that's not the sweatpants they've been wearing all day. So I would consider you, in terms of, and maybe this is just a reflection of my For You page and content, but definitely on the fashion radar. You put in the effort and it shows. And I think in terms of like building characters and plots, it's those kinds of details that really matter to viewers and make them commit to the series with you. Do you ever get comments about like those kind of details that maybe you put in behind the scenes that you hope people notice, but they don't always maybe get the attention they deserve?
I've never really gotten any notes about things behind the scenes, but I get some every now and then about the writing, like for the plots that are like larger than one TikTok that people are picking up on. And that's pretty cool. That goes back to like the noticing continuity thing. But I've never had anyone talk to me about the blazers or anything, and I don't put a lot of attention to it. I just try to wear different blazers for different characters because I'm aware it's very confusing that it's just me talking to myself. Basically the same angle. So I try to alleviate it if I can.
Well, I think if you were to think of like TikTok as a scale, you have the creators that do like the tea towels on the head to differentiate characters. And then you have like people that put in the work to make their characters look different. And I would put you on that side of the scale. I think the blades really do make a difference. I know this, and I give kudos to that. I want to talk about your experience in fandom, because you also make a lot of videos around like, for every episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier that came out, you were doing videos. You did the same for WandaVision. So maybe because this podcast is more specific to Marvel, we'll talk about Marvel. When did you get into Marvel? Has it always been a part of your life? And it seems like you've said that you go to the comic books for inspiration and details to help inform your content. So what has your relationship been like with Marvel, and how has it evolved over time?
Marvel is one of the most important things in my life, especially like the MCU. I watched Iron Man in theaters when I was 8 years old when it came out, and then I've watched every single one in theaters since. When I was a little kid, it's what got me into both comics and movies in general. It's what made me like a film major. And then I got like, when I was a preteen, I got into the whole fake fan gatekeeping thing about like, nah, you got to go read these comics instead of watching the MCU. But I came back around to love the MCU again. And then I don't know, Marvel really resonates with me, and I would not be where I am today without it. But even before TikTok, and now with TikTok, definitely not.
I love it. And you can see behind you, like you have some of the posters, like it's clear that you're in deep to this fandom and community. Let's talk about gatekeeping for a minute, because I think that that's slowly becoming a part of the conversation again, unfortunately. During COVID, a lot of people have had access to Marvel like never before with Disney Plus and with creators like you and others that are making more content and kind of bringing it back to the forefront. How do you think TikTok is impacting the community gatekeeping and maybe either helping or abetting it?
I think it's, at least in the For You page I get, it's got to be helping it, because there's a lot of very inclusive people giving like information on comic characters and stuff like that and giving recommendations. And there's very much a vibe that you don't need to be reading comics to say that you're a fan of superheroes. But at the same time, I've also noticed a lot of people, not really on my For You page, but on like being stitched by people on my For You page, who somehow gatekeeping the MCU and being like old MCU fans versus new MCU fans. And that I don't understand at all. Because like, if you're going to gatekeep anything, it should be source material to adaptation. You can't gatekeep half the adaptation. The MCU, I love it very much, but it's been very consistent. There's not a big schism in the middle in order to say that it changed. Like, it's the MCU.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like I see a lot of, there are people that are younger, like 13, 14 years old, that are just discovering the MCU. And it breaks my heart when I see people try and gatekeep them, because there's literally no way that some of these people could see Iron Man in theaters. Like, they are too young. They would have been like, babies or toddlers, or, in some cases not even born when some of these movies came out. And yet they are seeing this kind of gatekeeping trend that those of us who are older in fandom have seen and kind of grown up with. And we know how to combat it and deal with it and not take it seriously. For some of those younger or newer people to the fandom, maybe not just by age, but new people to fandom, what would you say to them about where to start and how to find your way through the movies and the comics and all of these things that you have to catch up on?
Well, see, I think that's part of the issue too, is the MCU has been going on for so long, and it's gotten so much like comics and the way it works, like with all the different branches and everything, that it's almost getting to the point where it's just as hard to jump into the MCU as it is to jump into the 60 years of comics that exist before the MCU. Yeah. But I don't know. I would just suggest watch what you want to watch. Like, I know a lot of people who only have seen part of the MCU or like the movies that seem fun, and like, if you like them, you like them. My roommate has only ever seen the Guardians movies.
Oh, really?
So good enough for me.
Yeah, that's enough. And I mean, like, it's great that there's movies like Guardians or Like I see Thor Ragnarok all the time as like the movie that people get like really into with no context of backstory. Like I love when people have only seen Ragnarok and they don't understand any of the Loki backstory. It's like, oh well, it's still an enjoyable movie, but you've missed so much context that makes what it is. So hopefully, I think like creators like you and this side of TikTok can really help people that it's not too late. Just dedicate some time to figuring it out and watching and reading when you can, and you can get there. Like the rest of us that have been in deep for as long as it's been around, we've been in deep with it. Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation, and I think the more that we talk about gatekeeping and showing people that it is okay to have not seen everything immediately, like you can't. I think Hank Green was the one that said you can't fit like 30 years of history into your brain in a day, and we can't expect people to either, right? So I always like to talk about it because I think it's super important.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about some of your favorites in the MCU. I see you have a Spider-Man poster behind you. Are you partial towards Spider-Man or like one specific character or piece of the franchise?
To the MCU? Not really. I really like them all. My least favorite for a while, like most people's, was Thor. Like those were the movies I went to because you had to go to them to understand it. Yeah. But Thor post Ragnarok is just as good as the rest. If I had to give special, I guess the Captain America trilogy is my favorite one because it's just incredibly well made, and you gotta love Steve Rogers. But also
love Steve Rogers.
I also really like the Iron Man trilogy. I feel like it's very underrated for the way it tries to approach like realism in the superhero community, and like all the other MCU movies threw that out the window. But Iron Man's still coming out at the same time as like the Dark Knight and stuff, and was trying to be realistic. And I think I like that very much as well.
I think that Iron Man 2 is one of the most underrated movies in the MCU. I don't know why. I love that movie. I think it's so well done for the time it came out in. And so just like you said, it's a very like human approach to some of the problems that Tony Stark was facing. Kind of the same as what they tried to do in Iron Man 3. But anyway, I agree with you on those fronts. So you're a Captain America lean towards kind of person. I'm a Bucky Barnes girl. Bucky Barnes is blowing TikTok right now, which makes me very happy because that's always been who I've been partial towards. What's your take on kind of how trendy Marvel has become in a sense? Like you see all these people thirsting over Sebastian Stan who have no sense of who he's been in the MCU, and people making edits around videos and movies that they've never even seen. What do you think of like the trend culture right now and its take on some of these characters?
I think it's fine. I can see how some people might be a little annoyed by it, especially if they're making things about people or movies they haven't seen. But I think at the end of the day, like as long as they're enjoying it and as long as they like watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they like Bucky, then you like Bucky. Personally, not to disagree with you, but personally, Bucky was always my least favorite until Falcon.
Oh, controversial. Why?
I really never thought he had much of a character. He was like he didn't never do much. That's why I like Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You actually got to see him like have dialogue with people, instead of just be like moody and brooding over there.
No, it's very true. I think that he could have had some better, especially in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I think that he deserved a much better right than what he got in that movie for something that was supposed to be so substantial about his character. It kind of fell flat in some senses for me. Let's talk about Falcon and Winter Soldier and what's coming up next in the MCU. What was your take on after watching WandaVision and then watching Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Was there one show that you liked more than the other, or one that kind of gave you a certain impression of where the future of the MCU is going?
I definitely liked WandaVision much more. I liked Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but WandaVision I thought was really inventive and going in new directions. And also teased, I can't remember his name, I think it's Chithon or something like that, which is a villain I did not expect until like halfway through when they brought him up the first time. I was like, I did not expect you to ever be entering the MCU like that.
Right.
I mean, which big bad was coming next? I would not have thought him, but we'll see.
And I guess as a film major and somebody that has that context of how these things are made, it must have been very fun to watch WandaVision for how much detail they put in getting those eras so spot on and the styling.
I am so into sitcoms, like on the side, like as
okay.
mediums. I had a blast watching all of the references and stuff as they went through the decades for WandaVision.
Was there a particular reference that they made or decade they explored that you resonated with a lot or that you enjoyed the most?
I'm not quite sure if there was a particular one. I really liked the 80s episode, where the first one with Quicksilver. That one was really nice. Yeah. I enjoyed that. And I really liked the first like two, the 50s and the 60s. Not so much because of like even the references, even though I liked that, but like those were the most abstract ones I think they had. And I was really digging the abstract aspect of WandaVision.
Mm-hmm. I think they really like put a lot of effort into trying something totally different. And like for that, I think the show deserves a lot more credit because people were like, oh, it's like when you start watching the show and like you don't understand the full plot, like, oh, it's confusing or whatever, like that dialogue was at the beginning of the show. By the time you finished it, it was like, okay, now I have to go back and rewatch this whole thing and figure out what was I missing along the way. And you know, I think it's
like, what? Damn.
It deserves a lot more credit for how, like you said, like how inventive it was and how much effort they put into really giving it its own time in the spotlight for Wanda, especially in her character development too. And now we have Sam Wilson as Captain America. So cool. What's your take on what's coming next for Sam? And we know that they're writing the next movie right now, and it's probably going to lead into a whole new like Captain America franchise. What's your take on where this is all going?
I genuinely don't know, because I don't know a lot about Falcon Captain America, but I'm very excited to see what they do with him, because he's definitely a very different. They spent all this time in the show setting him up as a very different person than Steve Rogers. Like he's still as good of a man, but he's gonna have different priorities, and so I'm very interested to see where he's going forward, especially a Captain America that just straight up does not have the support of the government. Because like Steve was fighting the government, but like they still backed him. But this Falcon is just out. So
yeah. He's kind of an outlaw doing his own thing and making his own opinions. And, you know, it's really a stark contrast to that first Captain America movie where like Captain America was a straight propaganda tool. Right now we have someone that's completely outspoken against the government. Kind of reflective of where we are today in society in a lot of ways and the kind of heroes that we need. But I'm really excited to see how they develop it into like a feature-length film and you know, probably bringing back a character like Bucky and obviously bring back John Walker, these new characters introduced. Was there anything about that show and what it's set up for this next phase that really caught you by surprise?
I think the most surprising one was the teasing of the Thunderbolts as coming into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I love the Thunderbolts. I've read some of the very first comics. I'm not fully caught up on them, but I love them as a concept. And I'm very intrigued with the fact that they seem to be shifting it away from being like Marvel's version of Suicide Squad to like making like the Dark Avengers and having like John Walker be Cap and everything like that. And so I'm intrigued to see where we're going with just evil Avengers.
Yeah. And maybe some evil IRS, evil Avengers like crossover will happen in the future if that's where we end up. I'd like to see that happen.
They kept recommending John Walker for the IRS thing, and I was like, I don't want to do this until the show ends because I don't know what's going to happen to John Walker. I was like, I don't want to make something not make sense in 2 days. I gotta wait.
Which is now the beauty of we have this gap until Loki starts. I feel like it's like, okay, the canon has stopped. Like we are at a definitive point. Let's make as much content as we can before everything gets shaken up again. There's so much coming down the pipe. Is there one project coming that you're particularly looking forward to?
I'd probably say either Spider-Man 3 or Doctor Strange 2 or further down Fantastic Four. I'm very excited for that for I think a year or two. But definitely Doctor Strange 2 has got so much hype around it, similar to Spider-Man 3. They're like, oh, this person's in it, this person's in it. Everyone's going to be in this movie, and it's going to be a giant mess, and I'm quite excited to watch it.
And so do you think it's going to be a giant mess? I think is the question. I have very strong opinions about Doctor Strange. So I'd love to hear kind of your take on the franchise per se and like on what's coming with it.
I think Doctor Strange 2 has much more leeway than something like Spider-Man 3 has to be completely crazy. And I do trust Marvel. Every time I thought Marvel is going to put out a movie that's going to wreck it, they've only gotten bigger, including the first Doctor Strange. So I think Doctor Strange, especially because now we have all of WandaVision building up the concept of sorcery as a thing. Like it's not just the lone magic person in this world of superheroes anymore. Like you have superheroes and there's people who just know magic. And then I think that they're going to be fine. I'm more worried about Spider-Man 3. Spider-Man 3 with all of the people they're like sayings in it and stuff, I'm a little hesitant on that.
A little hesitant. So is it the cast and like the influx of people that makes you nervous, or is it maybe? I feel personally like they put Spider-Man in a corner in the way they ended the last movie of like, oh, okay, like they have to address certain things.
Definitely, I don't know how they're getting around that because it's such a brave departure, and I can't imagine they're gonna pull a One More Day or something, which is in the comics when he got his identity revealed and made a deal with the devil to get it back or whatever. I don't imagine they'll do that because everyone hated it in the comics, but I don't know how they're gonna get around it. I can't imagine them keeping it because I know the MCU doesn't really like secret identities, but like he's Spider-Man, he needs the secret identity. So
yeah, it really blows up a lot of what has been set up about Spider-Man kind of forever. It's like, oh shit, okay, well I guess this is gonna just like you said, like you have to trust Marvel because like they haven't really fudged a storyline like that yet, but definitely there's some nerves around like how are they going to do this?
The whole J. Jonah Jameson thing is like out the window. Like he just knows who he is. He's gonna like screw Peter Parker specifically. Like,
right?
And they also teased Charlie Cox might be coming back in that movie, and people are like, maybe he'll be like defending Peter Parker and claiming he's not Spider-Man, like as the lawyer. And I was like, I don't know about that. I've also seen a lot of people theorize that Spidey that we saw is not from the same universe, and that Tom Holland is going to fall, and that's going to be the Spider-Verse thing. He's going to be one of the other who come to the main. I don't know what the MCU's name is in terms of numbers, but they come to the main MCU thing, which would also make sense because in that movie, in the Spider-Man movie too, I'm pretty sure they claim that Earth is Earth 616, which is the comic universe, and that caused a whole little controversy. And also in the original Spider-Man, they say that the events are taking place 8 years after the Avengers fight, which would be 2020, which caused a lot of other people to be confused. So if they come back and they're just like, actually, the Tom Holland movies were a different Spider-Man in a different universe, I think people would rage, but it would actually fix a little bit of the mistakes they've been making.
Yeah. Yeah. It also kind of leaves to question, like, if that is what's happening, are we going to see Tom Holland in a billion more Spider-Man movies, or are they really going to like end his arc there and then bring in the new Miles character, which I've been seeing a lot of theory around. So do you have any takes on like how far you expect the Spider-Man to go and what the next evolution of it will be?
The problem with characters like Miles and like in general, when people try to make POC characters in comics by making them legacy characters, is it takes so much work to get them to be around full time. Like you got to do so much effort to bring Miles into the main continuity, and you have to kill Peter Parker, which everyone loves Peter Parker. So it's hard to do. But like I know Tom Holland signed up for a lot more films, which could be a misnomer because the guy who played Quicksilver was also signed up for a crap ton of films, and he died.
Yeah.
But I want to see Tom Holland grow. I think it's a really great time and to do this with the way Marvel is so patient in all their stories anyway, to watch Spidey actually go from being in high school to being in college to being an adult and married and everything, which is what we got in the comics. He's one of the few characters who gets to grow up in comics. Yeah. And so I would like to watch that. I hope they don't just kill him and bring in Miles, but also don't want to like prevent Miles from being in the MCU. So it's a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like one more piece of that is how they filmed the scene with Donald Glover being revealed as the uncle, right? And then they cut it from the movie. So to me, that is such a red flag of like, okay, why? Clearly there's intent. And then somebody said no, and the scene got deleted, and they got rid of that entire setup. So what?
The idea that Miles does exist in the Tom Holland films is more evidence that Tom Holland might be in the quote-unquote Ultimates world instead of the mainline MCU world. But I don't know. It's such a mess trying to get Miles involved because he's specifically written to not be able to get involved. And I love Miles as a character. I really hope I want to see him in the big screen, preferably in live action. He's great in his own movie. But
I think we can be hopeful and love the character and want to see that moment, and then also be very critical of like how many things is this going to royally screw up if and when it happens, right? I loved that movie. I had one of the best movie-going experiences seeing The Amazing Spider-Man. We were the only ones in the theater, and there was a blizzard outside, and there was like probably nobody else in the entirety of the movie theater we went to when we saw that movie. So my partner and I, we were like screaming and like jumping up and like running around the theater. We were like so into it. It was an amazing experience. So like for that very selfish reason alone, I do want to see him integrate because I want to experience that again because it was such a good arc. But however, I also love Tom Holland. So I like you want to see, you know, a Spider-Man crossover with 21 Jump Street style college humor like setup. I want an R-rated Spider-Man where Peter Parker is trying to figure out like the frat house that's actually the home of his arch nemesis, like Mysterio, whatever, right? Like I think that would be hilarious to see him grow up. Yeah, so here's hoping that Tom Holland does have a future with the MCU and that they'll be able to kind of wrap it all together in a way that won't screw up what they've already established. I guess we'll get our answers in a few months when it comes out in December.
It's also just very funny because, like, had the copyright issues not existed, Spider-Man would have been the front of this universe in the same way that he's the front of comics and all of Marvel. He's their mascot. And you can tell through all these films that they were just clenching their teeth that they couldn't use Spider-Man. So I'd be very surprised if they just threw him away now.
Yeah.
But we will see.
We will see. I think the last piece of that conversation, which makes me think, is how Tom Holland was so quick to pick up the indie films that he's been a part of, right? And he took on Cherry so quickly with the Russos, and then Chaos Walking, and then the Devil All the Time. And, you know, he picked up all these super serious, off-the-wall indie films. And I made me wonder, like, did he do that out of a strategy to ensure that if Spider-Man fell through, he was still set up to be taken seriously in the industry, right? And will he have to lean on that if they decide this is his last hurrah in December? Do you have any speculation around those pieces?
I assume that Holland is just a bit of two things. One, he is one of the few young actors. Like, Hollywood's got a big graying problem, and in terms of A-list 20-somethings, Holland's one of the few we have. And if you want an action movie like Chaos Walking, you're not going to cast Timothée Chalamet. So the guy.
Okay, whoa. Now I need to think. Chaos Walking with Timothée Chalamet is a movie I need to see. That would have been hilarious. That's a rabbit hole I need to go think about when we're done this conversation. That would be iconic. Imagine Timothée Chalamet as Spider-Man.
I'm sure many people have. I'm sure that's a big conversation in Marvel Studios was if they can make Chalamet Spider-Man.
I mean, imagine the box office numbers if we had that iconic laugh. You know, the laugh that he does that kind of comes from his throat, the like, kind of like imagine that as he's like slinging through New York. That's a rabbit hole I need to now go consider when we're done this conversation. Yeah, but you are correct. I think, yeah, that's a really good point that, you know, Tom is one of the few people that can do what he's proven to do at the age he's at. So they've even asked him about Bond, which is like such an archaic question to ask British actors, but to even ask that to a 24-year-old is
so dumb. That's crazy.
In the Cherry press tour, it came up constantly. People are like, would you consider Bond? And what are your thoughts on playing James Bond? And I'm like, people are asking that like to actors in their 60s right now. And you're going to like extend that same bar to Spider-Man.
Canonically, Bond also dead? Isn't he dying in the new one? And the lady?
So.
I can't remember taking over.
I think so.
No. Yeah. I mean,
the lead song for the film is No Time to Die. So I would assume. That's the direction. So we will see, I think, is kind of where that ends, that conversation. And maybe when Spider-Man does come out, hopefully we talk again before that. You should come back on the show. We can reflect on what we've said today and see either how accurate or how wrong we were. And hopefully we get some spoilers from Tom between now and then to kind of inform what we can expect. I've been saying forever, like since I started all of this, that Tom Holland's going to come on my show and I am going to interview him. So when that happens, I'll get some answers for us. Before I let you go, I have a game for us to play to end things on. Again, because I think the IRS is such like a niche humor that I love as somebody that also like I follow politics and you know, Parks and Rec is one of my favorite shows and you know all of these things. Your series really made me think, what other government agencies or, federal departments could tie into the MCU. So I want to play a game with you where we talk about some iconic bureaus and agencies in the States and which characters we can talk about DC too, but specifically with Marvel, which characters kind of fit in those pictures. So if you're down to play, I'd love to ask you. Okay, so the first one, who would sit on the Supreme Court?
Was the MCU?
Yeah.
I assume that the best one would be Vision. Yeah.
Right.
Calculating.
See, I thought that too. And then I was running this by my partner before we started, and he said that it should be Jarvis. And then they can do like a Judge Judy style show with Jarvis, who knows everything about everyone. And now that's something that I need to see. So I don't know if you want to steal that for a series, please feel free to build that out. Judge Jarvis, I think that needs to happen. There's somebody on TikTok that's building Jarvis. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have seen this dude.
Incredible.
People build so many cool things on TikTok. I'm like, wow, development.
I'm over here like doing a podcast, which is like for the skill sets I have, this is like something that I do every day is work on shows. And then I go on TikTok and I see people that are like, in 3 hours, I built a fully functioning Iron Man suit. And I'm like,
we're going to be a lot of Iron Man suits in the world in the coming months. And I don't know what we're going to be doing with them. But we all have
and Bucky Barnes arms. Have you seen the people building the Bucky arms? Like, are you going to wear that out like to the grocery store?
You see the person who built Yondu's arrow?
Yes.
That was insane. I didn't know you could even do that. Like,
right?
He's just like whistling and it's moving around. It's like, my God.
How are people so smart that they figure that out in their spare time? That's what I want to know. It's like, what are you actually getting paid to do? If this is what you do as like your relaxing, fun activity. It blows my mind. And then the fact that they take the time to actually share it on like TikTok, mind blowing. Like, go get your money. Like, go sell that to someone. Get your money. Okay, next in our little game here, the U.S. Postal Service.
U.S. Postal Service. Doctor Strange.
Oh, that's a good one. He could find all the lost mail really quickly, couldn't he?
Plus, he could just teleport to all the places.
Yep.
Well, no delivery time. It's a snap.
My thought went to Quicksilver for this one, because at least he could be speedy about it. But I think Doctor Strange is a much more cost-effective way of delivering mail. And then again, like being able to find lost packages, like that would be, a 0% problem for them. So I agree with you on that one. Doctor Strange for the U.S. Postal Service. Okay, here's an interesting one. The Food and Drug Administration.
The FDA. We'll go Captain America.
Yeah, why Captain America?
He's a good guy, and the FDA is kind of sketch.
They need a little Steve Rogers in there.
Yeah, exactly. You bring in him, and hopefully things get a little bit better in regulation.
Do you follow female Peter Parker on TikTok? She does a bunch of Marvel, she's a phenomenal actress, and she takes on the different voices and personas of the characters. And she does a series called Cooking with Thor, and it's her cooking in her kitchen, and she's cooking real stuff that she's making, but she does it as Thor and Loki. So for that reason alone, I would say put Thor and Loki in the FDA. I mean, Loki could pose as customers and get those inspections done.
That's true.
With a little bit of mischief, right?
Thing is a wonderful skill to have at the FDA.
Right. I like that take on it. Okay. Coast Guard.
Who would work as a Coast Guard? I guess maybe Hawkeye.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I was gonna say put Jimmy Woo in the Coast Guard. Just pick him up from where he is and pop him on a boat. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, Coast Guard. I'd love that.
WandaVision season 2, all on the ocean. Hilarious. And we got Ant-Man in the water and Ant-Man 2. We had a little water moment.
Yes, that's another good pick. Hero in water.
Hero in water qualifies for Coast Guard. The bar is low. Okay. What about the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives?
Hulk.
Yeah. Why would you pick Hulk?
That's a lot of dangerous things. You're gonna want Hulk.
And he can just go and just literally destroy if he finds things. Yeah. I like that.
That's the beer that goes up against like the mob and stuff. You're gonna want a Hulk.
It's true. Okay, I'm fully with you on that pick. I think Hulk is a good one. I wouldn't trust someone like Peter Quill in this department. I think that he would go absolutely the wrong way with it, and it would, in terms of like a plot for a movie, I would watch it. But if I was actually in charge of this department, I would like ban him from coming near it.
Peter Quill, Rocket Raccoon, Tony Stark. These are all of them should not be working for the ATF. That is
blacklisted. Absolutely not. Okay, what about Customs and Border Patrol? So for this, I'm specifically thinking the Canadian border, which is typically just people forgetting that they have weed in their car because weed is legal up here, and then trying to drive into the States to go shopping at Target. They do other things, obviously. It's a very important department, but that's the scenario I have in my mind is which guy or girl is coming to your car to bust you out for weed in your trunk.
For weed in your trunk. I'll go Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, this could be a good fit for him, for sure.
Sniffing out weed and then
yeah, that's a good one.
Like a good time taking people's weed from them.
I feel like this is a good retirement career for Natasha. You know, like very low stakes, but she could get really fired up at people for like small reasons that don't have like a ton of weight. I'm sure there's also big reasons that we just don't hear about in the news, but for me, this is a good retirement choice for Black Widow.
Customs and Border Protection is typically more referenced with the Mexican border. They do a lot.
Yeah.
But
so we'll put Rocket at the northern border with Canada. We'll put Black Widow down at the Mexican border.
Black Widow will definitely do a lot of good there.
What about the Library of Congress? Thinking a lot of history involved in this one. A lot of like Smithsonian, national pride kind of work involved here.
I'm thinking either Cap, Thor, or Peter Quill. Any of the people lost in like Man Out of Time vibes.
Yeah,
would include the Library of Congress.
Yeah, I think Steve Rogers is a good pick for this one. Peter Quill, I think, would be hilarious trying to like catch up on history via his job, like being like, "Oh, like, do you have a book on like the JFK assassination?" He'd be like, "What? What? Let's go. Like, tell me about that."
That's the best thing about Quill is he got abducted like 8 or something, so he's got a lot. Like he just wouldn't have even learned by the time he left, and catch up.
We've got a lot of catch up to do. I want a series of just like Captain America and Bucky just catching up on the history that they missed while they were doing, you know, Steve was frozen, obviously.
Bucky would be such a wholesome pick for this, actually. Just wandering around the library and like learning about what's been going on and how many historical events he was a part of.
If he was living with the Wilsons and like helping the sons with their history homework, he'd just be like, "What are you talking about? Like, that's not how that happened. Like, let me tell you how like the Cold War ended. Like, I was there." So I need an entire series of that, I think. Who would work in education?
I give that to Sam Wilson.
Yeah, he'd be good here. Very empathetic.
Yeah.
I also thought maybe Banner. He could like, he knows a lot. He's a doctor technically.
He's a professor, I'm pretty sure as well, technically.
Yeah.
That would be such a funny thing because like in World, he's such a renowned scientist. Like in I think it's Homecoming, they have like pictures of him in the science room. It'd be funny if he was just in charge of the Department of Education. So he made Bill Nye or someone. Or like a real
my God, could you imagine a Bruce Banner, Bill Nye the Science Guy crossover? Hilarious. I think I need to make a list after this conversation. Like, what were the ideas we came up with? And just like, who do we give them to make them actually happen? I like Sam Wilson, though, as Department of Education. That's another excellent pick here. I also feel like Sam could do a lot in like a veterans department and like working in the military, maybe. Okay, last one. This is a hard one. I haven't actually been able to think of a person for this. So whoever you pick, I'm going to agree with. Federal Trade Commission.
See, my guy wants to go Black Panther, but he's not technically American.
Oh, well, he's in the MCU. Like, I'll give it to you. Like, T'Challa would be excellent. And especially, he's got the diplomacy down. Like,
exactly. He's a king. He knows how to do international relations.
Absolutely. Okay, 100% Black Panther for the Federal Trade Commission. And we're recording this, obviously, not the day that the podcast is coming out, but today we got news of the title for the next Black Panther movie. It's going to be Wakanda Forever. Did you see that announcement? We got a lot of other news as well, but specifically, what did you think of that when you saw it come out?
I'm excited for the second one. I'm not, again, like, I have full trust in Marvel, and I'm not sure what they're doing. I heard it's gonna be focusing more on like the inner workings of Wakanda and paying tribute to Chadwick Boseman, which I assume means that they're gonna kill off Black Panther or T'Challa in between films, which I'm kind of upset about.
Mm-hmm.
But because, like, especially you just go through everything with Endgame, it's like, oh, and then he died. But
yeah,
I am very fascinated to see how Wakanda works as a nation. I think that'll be a very interesting film.
I don't think there's a lot of films, like maybe with the exception of some of Thor, but we don't get a lot of opportunity to really dive into that level of detail that like I love so much, right? Like of, you know, where did all these pieces come and how did they form together, and the history and you know, the world building. So I'm so hoping that that's what this movie is going to be. If it's like 2 hours of world building, I'm going to be so satisfied.
Oh,
no action sequences, just diplomacy and talking about the economy and vibranium extraction.
Like Game of Thrones, but in Wakanda, just the people talking about who's going to take power, the government, the king, everyone. I would follow it completely.
Yeah, I completely agree. So Wakanda Forever, that's something else we can revisit if and when it ever comes out. Who knows now with the way they've been shaking up dates, but we can come back and see if we were right down the line. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been an hour of, so many great ideas have come out of this conversation. I'm going to have to go make a list. And I'm so excited to see the IRS show continue. And I hope that more people continue to find you because like the best comparison I can make is like your characters remind me so much of the humor from Parks and Rec, and like that really minutiae, like if you know the tax system, it's hilarious. If you don't, it's still hilarious. And you're so thoughtful with what you do. So I'm excited to see what you do next. Thank you for joining me. Where can people find you and how can they support your content?
You can find me on TikTok. That's really the only social media I use, at Nikhil Clayton, like it says. And if you want to support my content, I've got merch and a Venmo on my bio.
Venmo him up if you watch his content.